from what I could tell physically or by eyesight. Mm. But I the other bowl games. I mean, but Army has a poll, right?
Hey,
So like
Stephanie, can
Army,
you resend me the invitation? One I've got isn't working.
Yeah, I can do that.
Huh.
All right. Yep, I can do that. Alrighty.
I think probably the worst fan attendance bowl that I have noticed this whole bowl season was the Birmingham Bowl yesterday, because quite frankly, it looked like maybe there were about 250 people there.
All right. Who is playing?
It was Appalachian State and not Georgia Southern. I can't even remember,
I
but
think it was Georgia Southern.
Appalachian State was and Appy State was 5-7 this past season.
It was Georgia Southern.
They're 5-8 now because Georgia Southern won the game.
Hmm.
But I saw an aerial shot of the game in progress with the fans in the stands, and high school football games are better attended than that.
Yeah.
That's a low ball. But yeah.
And I remember the same stadium, Army played UAB, and I was at that game. And quite frankly, there were not many people at that game either. I think
Oh,
the
it's
Army
that
fans,
stadium.
I think the Army fans actually outnumbered the UAB fans at the start of the game.
Definitely.
That's what it looked like on TV.
It looked like
I
I
thi-
think it probably holds about 35,000, I would say, maybe.
Stephanie, can you resend the invitation?
Yep.
I think at
Yeah.
Fenway though, it was like half and half Army and UConn fans. It seemed like UConn really pulled out. A lot of people came from UConn, but then I mean, I would say the other half for Army was like West Point grads, West Point people were affiliated, and then there were also a lot of people just from Boston who are, they were just rooting for Army,
Yep.
which I
UConn is a
accept.
school that's
Nothing against
about
that.
10 times larger than West Point.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's closer to Boston. There were more Army people there than there were than UConn people.
All right. I sent you the invite on Gmail.
No, it hasn't come through. Let me try
Can
one
also
other thing.
try.
Otherwise, maybe I should just say goodnight and let you guys do it. It's not makes sense to have.
Well, you can
have
still. We can hear you, Ken. I mean, we're fine with you
I can forward you the invite again.
hosting.
Okay, I'm forwarding it to you right now.
Hey, you. Message. Oh, yes.
I did send it, so
Buddy.
let's see here.
Ooh boy.
Yeah, I say just stay on. If it's thinking you're trying to use your phone, I say just stay on and we'll use your picture and we'll have you talk.
Yeah. That works just fine. That'll be great.
Sound good, Ken?
It's the best we can do.
Yep.
Just we can't seem to get the technology right. This time it's my fault because I usually do the show off my cell phone.
Field
Right.
expedient.
But
Yep.
now I'm doing it off my desktop because I'm home tonight. But that's what I did last week. Okay. When are we going to start?
Alrighty, well, 3, 2, 1.
And it's Ken Kraetzer for CamMVetsMedia, our season-ending edition of the Army Football Huddle. Army coming off a decisive 41-16 win in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl in Boston on Saturday on a frozen field in an iconic stadium, and very dedicated fans who were there to watch the game in person. Okay, sorry I'm having some technical problems getting the video going. But we'll just keep going and introduce Richard Miller calling in from Florida. How are you, Richard?
Very well, Ken. Nice to be
Well,
here.
well envious of you in a warm weather climate. And from New York City, we've got Curtis
Hey,
Alexander Clayton Harris Jr.
hey, Ken,
Curtis, how
thanks
are
for
you?
having me. Doing well, doing well. It's trying to stay warm in the cold.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And from the Beat Navy studio, looks like he's back in Huntsville, Alabama. Colonel Sam Houston. Colonel, how are you?
I'm great, Ken, and yes, I am back in Rocket City. I am happy coming off this past weekend's victory, and I'm also a little melancholy knowing that we've got to wait until Labor Day weekend of 2026 for the renewal of Army football.
Yeah, and we're all anxious because the game went so well at Fenway Park. The team played tough and found a new running back, and many players coming back. Okay, so we've got on Long Island Chuck Donegan. Chuck covered the Pinstripe Bowl for us at Yankee Stadium on Saturday. Chuck, how are you?
I'm good, Ken. Definitely a great game and a nice win for Penn State.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And Stephanie Sakry in Minnesota is getting us on the air.
Yep.
Stephanie, thank you. How is it? I hear it's milder in Minnesota than it is in New York today.
It is a little bit, I mean, it is still very cold. I mean, we had sub-zero temperatures of what it felt like from Sunday. Actually, yesterday we had sub-zero temperatures, and it's typical Minnesota weather.
Yeah, well, we're in the 20s here in New York, and the wind is howling, and that's what it was Saturday up at Fenway Park. I thought it was a very interesting place to be, the way they have the football field set up at Fenway Park, parallel to the basically the right field stands, and 22,000 paid at the game. It had snowed the night before, and they had to clear that off the field and all the seats. And then it was cold but sunny for the warm-ups, and then it kind of then the shadow kind of came over the field, and it was frozen. I knelt down on the field for a moment so I wasn't blocking somebody's view, and it was pretty hard. But a lot of you gotta applaud the fans who came out for the game. It wasn't a nice. It was kind of like a memorable experience just being at Fenway Park for a football game. They really haven't played much football since the earlier days of the stadium when some of the area colleges played there, especially Boston College, and then the New England Patriots played there in the '60s. And then just a great performance. Cale Helms really leading the offense, and the freshman God's Power. And I'm gonna have to. I still haven't gotten how to pronounce his last name down. We're gonna have to have a drill on pronouncing his last name. But he really emerged. We were kind of waiting for him all season. I talked to him as went in summer camp, and just after they switched him to running back, but they had used him in a couple of games sparingly. But then in this game, they gave him the ball, and he went 43 yards in the second quarter, 70 yards in the third quarter, which pretty much decided the game. Okay, well, let's go around. Curtis, you were at the game. Why don't we hear your impressions.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, it was cold. That was one of the first things that hit me when I get that game. But seriously though, God's power, and I need to know how to pronounce his last name as well, as you mentioned, Ken. I need to learn that going forward. But anyhow, God's power did a phenomenal job. I mean, as you mentioned, the 40-yard run that he had before the first half or during the first half, and then the other runs that he had after that. I mean, there was one run where he broke at least 4 or 5 tackles, and he ran down the sidelines and scored a touchdown. I mean, it was just phenomenal seeing him go from quarterback and transitioning to, I guess, fullback slash running back. I don't know what you would really call his position in that game, but it was phenomenal, and it was great to see the seniors go out on a victory. The first season, I think, at the end of the game they put DC Dwayne Coleman in. Um, and the rest of the first season to just give them a good, run off for the team. And they scored a touchdown with that offense, and I thought that was pretty cool. But it was great to see the Army Black Knights pull off a victory against UConn.
Absolutely. And Colonel, you're watching with your dad down in North Carolina, I believe. And tell us what was some of your impressions of the game?
First off, the return of the fullback. What we saw this past Saturday was the most effective use of the fullback by the Army team in several seasons now. 3 fullbacks, Jake Rendina, Carson Smith, and God's Power. That's my stab at his last name. We'll get it all right for next season. Combined for 307 yards on 36 carries. And to find a similar performance by the fullbacks of the Army football team, you have to, like I said, go back several seasons. I believe it dates back to when Darnell Wolfolk and Andy Davidson were doing some combined hustling of the rock back in the day, also under Monken. But think of it this way: the offensive line of the offense is the engine of the triple option. That being said, the fullbacks are the piston of that engine. And what they do is they soften the middle. They keep the defensive line and the linebackers honest. And Army, for whatever reason, in the past couple of seasons, has gotten away from extensively using the fullback and have been gradually running the football a lot with the quarterback, which when you get late in the game, what happens is without that piston pumping of the fullbacks, it makes it easy for the defense to cheat. And the defense cheating means that they're automatically making the read that the quarterback is going to keep the ball, and it makes it a lot easier for a defense to defend the offense. But when the triple option is running at its best power, using its full playbook, you get what we saw this past Saturday, and that is the quarterbacks, the combined quarterbacks. Cale Helms ran the ball 15 times. And of course, Dwayne Coleman came in, ran it once on a 4th down and picked up the 1st down. That's a total of 16 carries. But when you throw in Noah Short's carries in the game, what that means is that in a game where they carried the ball over 50 times, the quarterbacks only touched the ball 16 times. That's what triple option is about, because the quarterback is the timing chain of that engine. And that timing chain is the person who is managing the game, making sure the cylinders are firing correctly, and making the reads. And if it's done correctly, the quarterback is only going to carry the ball about a third of the time in any given game. Kel Helms managed the game extremely well, and kudos to him. The guy had 101 temperature on game day, came to play, and managed the game very well, and found out that, guess what? The offense runs a lot better when you've got fullbacks ripping up on the inside on counters and traps and picking up big yards. I think probably my second favorite player of the game besides God's Power was Jake Rendina. I've been waiting for Jake Rendina to have a game like this all season. I was looking for him to have a game like this last season. I was just wanting them to unleash Jake Rendina. The guy is 250 pounds. He's a world-class power lifter. Guy's one of the strongest people on the field. Very first time he touches the ball in this game, he goes 10 yards and he's bowling over defenders like we used to remember Darnell Wolfolk doing or Jacoby Buchanan. And that was not the end of it. The guy finished with almost 90 yards. The only mistake the offense made the entire game that literally can be counted in the stat column as a mistake is that on second and short, the third time they had the ball, Jake Rendina took a handoff up the middle and he got hit low. Ball went flying. UConn recovered, turnover. That was not good. Fortunately, it didn't cost too much in the grand scheme of things. But the other stat that it was that you can also very tangentially read, and I think I was talking to Stephanie earlier today about it. I think this is the third time this season, at least, where Army has had a game from start to finish where they had 0 penalties. And once again, they pulled off that feat against UConn. And in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, there were no letdowns. The Army turned on the Jets. They put the game away. And you found out that scoring a lot of points is also an effective defense late in the game, because when you have a lead that's insurmountable, it's easy to go ahead and rotate some players in who deserve some playing time and get them on the field and allow them to be able to get out there and execute. And Army rotated a lot of players in the second half, and it was great to see them all on the field, all executing. And I think Ken, you and I were talking earlier today. One of my favorite things about this game as well was that this season, the very first touchdown drive that Army had against Charleston State was led by Dwayne Coleman. The final touchdown drive of the 2025 season also led by Dwayne Coleman. And I thought that was outstanding to give the young man the opportunity to get in and lead the offense one more time, his last opportunity to lead the team as the quarterback, and he led a touchdown drive, and it was great. So coming out of the game, we've got a lot of optimism for next season. And on the offensive side of the ball, the only playmaker that we lose on the offensive side of the ball is Noah Short. And I have to give props to Noah Short, because there's one other stat that needs to be mentioned here because it's historic. And what I found astounding is that it's never happened in Army football in their long and glorious history. Noah Short crossed a threshold to be the first Army football player in Army football history, including 3 Heisman Trophy winners, to have a career that included over 1,000 yards rushing and over 1,000 yards receiving. And it is amazing the number of accomplishments that young man has accomplished in his short time. And remember that he did all this. His plebe year, he was a defensive back and he was playing special teams. Made the switch over to offense his yearling year and played sparingly, got more into the game in his during his yearling year, and then his cow year. He excelled under Bryson Daly. And then he made a lot of great plays this season too, as well as the first touchdown of the game on a long pass. So congratulations to that accomplishment. And we'll see if anyone ever is able to break that. But again, offense is loaded. We bring back a lot of people from this offense. I think maybe we lose one starting offensive lineman. We lose Noah Short, but we bring back almost the entire offense, including this amazing stable of fullbacks. And one other, Briggs Bartosh, a yearling who we expect to be healthy next year, who was the best person running from the fullback position prior to his injury this season. Big question mark is going to be the defense. The defense loses a lot of people. 3 of the linebackers, almost all the defensive backs. Well, not the corners, but both safeties. And it's going to be a big challenge for Nate Woody and his staff to reload the defense. But, one thing that I do trust in Nate Woody and Jeff Monken to be able to get that done, because it does seem like the next man up mentality has worked pretty darn well. The last stat I'm going to leave you with from this game, and that is in the past 10 seasons, Army has had only 1 losing season. So 10 9 out of the past 10 seasons have been winning seasons for Army. Many of which, or have not all of them have been winning season, but there's only been one losing season in 10 seasons. There were 2 6-6 seasons. The rest of them were winning seasons that all went to a bowl game. All of those bowl games were wins, except for the one against West Virginia at the Liberty Bowl during the COVID year. But the point I'm making is that the last time Army football had a run that matched that was the year 1965. So that gives you an idea of how much Jeff Monken has really done to bring Army football back to prominence and to be a real threat on the FBS stage. So congratulations to the team on, it was a very challenging season. There were a lot of ups and there was definitely a lot of downs, but you ended it on a huge note of optimism with a crushing win on the national stage at Fenway Park. And we're already looking forward to seeing you guys kicking butt and taking names next season.
Absolutely. Thank you, Colonel. I will mention that you may not be aware, we actually have an award program that we've been doing for 15 years that honor 2 veterans in the town that I grew up in Pelham, New York, served in the U.S. Army, and were on a national championship team at Oregon State in 1949. Lieutenant Eugene Evans and Lieutenant Colonel Eli Page Howard both died in service. And this year's recipients are going to be Noah Short. He really fits the image, especially of Eugene Evans, who was a 4-sport athlete and a receiver on a national championship team. And then we've always been impressed with Jabrell Williams and with his perspective, his excellence on special teams. And so he is going to be a recipient along with Noah Short. And so we're excited to make that announcement. Let's see, let's go to Richard. What was your thought watching the game from sunny Florida?
Well, watching the game, watching the game, I just really saw, a really good performance and a really good important game where Army was, really doing a good job in running the football. Godspear, Redner, Smith, and Cale Helms really, took control. All these guys, Godspear's 171 yards, getting also 5 touchdowns from the running game. That is, I think, so critical, and I think just a game where you can take a team like UConn with like having 9 wins on the season. You really need, I think, a strong performance and really a good performance to build off of, and a nice just victory where there's nothing you have to worry about the rest of the way. I think that this is the kind of win, hopefully, that going into definitely next season you can maybe build up and off. By the way, it also gives Army a record of over 500, 7-6. So I think that this was just the kind of game where Army needed a performance like this, where they needed to really show, hey, it's not going to be like a 500 or under 500 season. You needed the performances. Helms a touchdown. The 6 touchdowns combined between the players, but also I think the running game in particular was really a major factor in the game, and I think that this is going to be hopefully the kind of win that they can take into the offseason, and that we can hopefully see going into next year that they will hopefully build off of.
Okay, Richard, thank you. And let's hear from Chuck Donegan now. We were simultaneously covering 2 games with our team between being in Boston, and then Chuck was at Yankee Stadium for the Pinstripe Bowl. Chuck, what was that like for you?
Ken, that was a very exciting experience just to be there. This bowl game between Penn State and Clemson like that. It was certainly a great victory for the Nittany Lions, 22-10. They did all right. Scoring game, it was somewhat low in comparison others I've seen, but really did a great job. The strong defense. They held the Tigers to just 236 yards of offense and combined 4 sacks, 6 tackles, 8 pass breakups. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
no, really was exciting.
What was it like for you being in the Yankee Stadium press room downstairs across from the Yankee locker room? And being able to listen to the post game and hear the coaches and the players. What was that like?
It was just really one of a kind experience. It was exciting to be a part of. Also, given the open air setup in the press box, if you're there on a cold December day, dress warmly.
Yeah, it was tough in the Fenway press box. There was a little bit of a draft under the glass window in front, but I can't complain. Actually, where I was sitting was the far left of the press box. I know we were talking about that they filmed a scene in the famous movie Moneyball right in that row. And I was down at the far end. I was kind of looking straight at the 2 goalposts. And that press box is very close to the field. But Yankee Stadium is open air and they don't have windows. A lot of places they have windows that can slide in front for bad weather days but not a Yankee Stadium. They're ready for the outdoors.
Oh, yeah.
Well, glad you had the experience there. Tell us a little bit. Did you get who is it? Do you have the name of the new Penn State coach? Or
Penn State coach. Not
Didn't
yet.
they
I
hire
will
him from,
say,
you can get back to that. It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing Dabo Sweeney in person has got to be a neat opportunity. What was he like? I heard he wasn't real happy after they lost that game.
No, I did feel he and one of his star players, they were, almost distraught, dare I say. It was a tough loss for them. I think they were dealing with it as best they could, but, was nice to see him close. Of course, he was very gracious and, fielded all the questions. And I will say Terry Smith was beside himself about the victory, just to be awarded the coveted Steinbrenner Trophy for his team's victory. So got to see that, witness the confetti cannons go off on the field. That was certainly something else.
That's fun. Now, what was the crowd like there? How
They
big a
were,
crowd would you say?
Yeah, it was a pretty good turnout. They, braved the snow that blanketed much of the New York metro area the night before. So
And you had to drive through the snow to get there.
Yep, and thankfully the grounds crew at Yankee Stadium did a great job of getting the field ready for play. So it was all good to go, and the cold certainly wasn't dimming their enthusiasm. I'll tell you that. I could hear the roar of the crowd no matter where I was. Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously Army played there last year, and a hallowed place. So I'm glad you had that opportunity.
Oh,
Okay,
Ken?
so just thinking more about the Army victory in the Pinstripe Bowl. Army outgained UConn 476 to 267 by 210 yards. And UConn only passed for 84. I think they were minus 4 yards passing in the first half, playing a freshman quarterback. And Army was 7-9. And then rushing, UConn got 183 yards and Army 368, which is 110 yards over their season average and 3 times their output against Navy. And then, a good sign, no penalties. UConn had 5. And Army kept the ball for 36 minutes. They just dominated. The players that UConn put on the field were not the players who contributed to their 9-win season. Well, some of them did. I'm sure they all contributed, but it wasn't the same team. But Army showed up. All their players showed up and ready to win. And as for the seniors, it was their last game. Any other thoughts on the game?
Well, I think factor that worked in Army's favor was UConn being without star quarterback Joe Fagnano, who opted out of the game because he was getting ready for the NFL draft.
And also the wide receiver. I forgot his name. I don't know if it was due to his injury for UConn. I think his number's number
Tyler
one.
Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
he
said he
was
dressed, but he
He
played
actually
only a
suited up.
bit in the first half.
Yeah, he
yeah,
suited up and
he
he
came in
came
for
out in the
one.
first series and then he
Yeah, he came
left
out in the
again.
first series for one play and then went back out. I don't know what the reason for that was. I mean, I'm not discrediting him or anything like that. I just don't know what was going on. But I think he had like 1,000 yards receiving this year. He was, I mean, yeah, they didn't have their full force of players, UConn, but at the same time, though, I mean, I was really, I mean, they were missing their quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and I think one or two players on defense. Either way, I think when you look at UConn as a whole, they had their weak side was the rushing defense. This entire season they had a weak area and being able to stop the run. I'm not saying that's why Army was able to run so much, but I think that's an aspect that has to be kind of looked at to some degree. I mean, UConn struggled stopping the run all year. But Army really came out on top regardless. I don't think it had anything to do with UConn having a bad defense. I think Army literally just they just manhandled this team. I mean, it was just incredible to watch.
Army was ready to play. I mean, we all thought, um, why was this rushing performance so solid versus 2 weeks before? And our friend Godspower, the freshman, I mean, anybody who's watched him, when we go to practice, we see him. He fit in so well with the running back room. And I watched him in the warm up, but he just fit in. He was so well accepted by his teammates. And it was just a question when he was going to show what he could do. And I think, those of us, get to practice and see him and talk to him, I knew he has a strong future.
Yeah.
And so again, we'll look forward to seeing his performance in spring and then going into next year.
Yeah.
But Army does have a pretty strong offensive team. I think the question is the backup to Cale Helms. Stephanie, I'm sorry. What would you like to contribute?
So, we had Charlotte, or Char, she said UConn seemed unprepared, regardless of most of their best players not being in attendance. They have to prepare the way Army does, which is years in advance.
Well, that's a good point.
And then she also said Matt Campbell is Penn State's new head coach.
That's a good.
Okay.
Yeah, from Iowa State. I was going to mention that. I think he's from Iowa State.
Yeah.
Matt Campbell.
Penn State's gone through a lot, and we'll see how they do.
So
with a new coach.
There's it's worth mentioning that where Army this season, obviously we know Army they've had a lot of ups and they've had a lot of downs, and of course the season started on a really down note when they lost in double overtime to FCS Tarleton State, and then there were several other heartbreaks such as North Texas and the Tulane game, and then of course the Tulsa game. Army had 5 losses this season by a single score. And, these are 5 games that we all know. If we watch the games, we also know that in every one of those 5 games, Army was at one point had at least a 8 or 9 point lead late in the game, and it gave it away. And, part of the challenge with that was the fact that Army's offense was really struggling to find itself most of the season. And some people, I've noticed some comments of late of some people, saying that we're being haters if we're pointing out the intuitively obvious about things about triple option football. And that is there were many games in which Army pretty much abandoned the use of the fullback. And it was to their detriment that they did so. And I can point to games precisely where they abandoned the fullback, and it was devastating to them late in the game. The Temple game, I'm sorry, the Tulane game. Get the ball with less than 2 minutes to go and all your timeouts, and you're unable to pick up a first down because the only person who's touching the ball is the quarterback. the Tulsa game. That literally the use of the B back or the fullback and running inside the tackles disappeared in the third quarter and would never resurface the rest of the game. It became Mikhail Hellam's only show, and it was extremely predictable. The defense was able to cheat, and they knew pretty much what every play was going to be, and they were there to stop it. And then the culmination of this, of course, was the Navy game in the second half. Army only ran the fullback one time in the Navy game, and that was in the first half. I think it was in their very first drive, and it was Jake Rendina, 1 carry, 4 yards, and then they never used the fullback again. If we go back to the Navy game, I'm not breaking down the Navy game, but in our huddle prior to the Navy game, I was expecting to see some breakout players in the game, and I mentioned Samari Howard and God's Power as my watch list players for having a breakout game against Navy. I also said that if Briggs Bartosh is healthy and plays, he will be a breakout player. However, Briggs Bartosh, of course, as we know, never came back the rest of the season. And we do not know the reason why God's Power did not play in the Navy game at all. However, his breakout game did come, and it came this past Saturday. I've been watching this kid all season, and there's some things about him that are all on the upside. He's a big kid. If you saw him standing next to Caleb Fortner during the MVP ceremony, you see how big he is. He's a linebacker out there playing fullback, but he's an athletic linebacker who was recruited to be a quarterback. So he's agile, he's fast, he's big, and he can break tackles, as we saw. And when he does, and he's in the clear, he's got the speed to leave people behind. As I called him this past Saturday, he's the second coming of Kanye Udo, only I think with an exclamation point. Lots of upside with this guy. And I'm looking forward to seeing him very heavily integrated into the fullback use in the coming seasons. And hopefully he will remain a Black Knight his entire career, because I really believe that he's on the cusp of having an extremely big breakout year next year. I also wanted to mention just kudos to the firsties on this team. Class of 2026 on Army football. During their 4-year run with Army football, they finished their Army career with a combined record of 31 wins, 20 losses. They beat Air Force 3 times. They went 2-2 against the Squids, and they brought home 1 Commander-in-Chief trophy. It was a job well done, and it was an exciting class to be able to watch them play. And we in our huddle, we thank all of you for your tremendous contributions to the fields of friendly strife, to the brotherhood. And we will miss every one of you, but we know that you have been trained and you have been groomed to be excellent leaders and officers in our United States Army. And the what we saw you accomplishing on the field in football, we know that you will accomplish many times over, leading the finest of our nation, and that is the U.S. Army soldiers. So thank you, each and every one of you, class of 2026 with Army football.
Absolutely. And, I thought a little bit of D. Wayne Coleman will be commissioning as an engineer, Army Corps of Engineers, was something he was very anxious to pursue. One of the questions going into next year, I guess it's a good problem when your worry is who the backup quarterback's going to be. But we have Zach Mundell, who's a junior, and also Bryson Luter, who was number 4 quarterback this year. And I think one of the questions is with Ethan Washington, the sophomore, who went out, the second drive of the first scrimmage in August. I remember watching him. We're all anxious to see what he could do. And he went down some kind of a turf injury right in the second drive of the first summer scrimmage in Michie Stadium. and he wasn't around the team. I understand he had surgery. Hopefully did well with that as recovering. It's not uncommon for athletes who have a serious injury to take the semester off to recuperate and hopefully be back ready for spring practice. And look forward to seeing him. Also, Army likely will bring in a couple more quarterbacks as they do into into the uh, into the roster. Um, Sam, any thoughts on that? Did you get a chance to see Ethan Washington at all?
Yeah,
But go ahead.
when Stephanie and I were at the Temple game,
I was just
um,
gonna ask, wasn't he the one that was on the crutches at the
yes, after
tailgate?
the
Yeah.
game, after the Temple game was over, we went back to Steve Chalout's tailgate initially, and we saw Cale Helms and his parents and his big brother, and we chatted with them for a while. Extremely fine young man, and you can see from his family, where it comes from. And anyone who, if you go on, I just want to say a quick plug for Cale Helms, and that is the television broadcast did not stick around to show the awards ceremony or any of the post game interviews. But if you go on YouTube and you just search the game, you can come up with the ESPN highlights video, and the ESPN highlights video has the post game interviews that they did, including the post game interview they did with Cale Helms. I would highly recommend you go watch that. If you,
Yeah, we
we,
have the award ceremony on our video channel on YouTube, KG Kraetzer Media, and we have
yeah,
the post game press conference, so we have the award ceremony.
yeah, I
Didn't
know.
quite get the
Those two, there was a specific interview. You know how the sideline reporter will do the interview with the coach, and then they'll do the interview with like Cale Helms and this and that. The TV broadcast did not show any of those, but they were filmed, and you can go watch them. Just saying that the interview with Cale Helms was a side of the kid that I don't think anyone has seen yet. And I'm just saying, if you ever had a doubt as to the character of this kid, just go check it out. But back to the subject of Ethan Washington. Um, After we left that tailgate, we ended up we had been invited by players' parents to come up in F lot and go to their players' parents' tailgate. And so we did. And we were very glad that we did. We're very blessed that we did that. And as we migrated through the crowd and talked to parents and players and felt dwarfed by some of these gigantic offensive linemen that Army has on their team these days, we ended up under a little tent where Brady Small was there and Ethan Washington was there on crutches, and we had a chance to talk with them for a while. And I must say that Ethan Washington has this kind of eternal optimism and enthusiasm that kind of energizes you when you're around him. He is a really enjoyable young man to be around, and you could tell that he is very loved by the team, and the players really appreciate him being a part of the brotherhood. And I can tell that the support network is there and in place for him to make a recovery and to have the opportunity to be able to take snaps again and compete for one of the QB slots on the 2026 squad. So, but what a great kid, and unfortunate that he had to miss this season because of the non-contact injury. But and he was on crutches when we saw him. But I'm telling you, what a great kid, and I would really, put your prayers in for the kid. He definitely needs another opportunity to be in pads and back behind center and getting that opportunity.
Heard he's very
well,
fast.
hope we agree with you. I'm told he re-aggravated an injury that he had in high school, and hopefully he
Is
can come back. And
Yeah,
we'll look
hopefully
forward
so.
to getting an update at probably when we get to spring practice. Curtis, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just heard that. I mean, I haven't seen him. I think I wasn't with you guys when you guys went to the tailgate to see Brady Smalls. I was with you guys when as Sam probably remembers, when you guys saw Cale Helm's parents and stuff like that. But I just remember from what I've read about Washington is that he is extremely fast. I've just heard that through the wire. I don't know if that's true. But I hope, first off, when it comes to serious injuries, I hope he recovers as best as possible. That's the first thing. But two, I would love to see him fight for either the second slot or potentially the first slot. I mean, who knows? I mean, honestly, I don't count this guy out. I mean, he was the second string quarterback going into the season. Technically, Cale Helms was the third string.
Mhm.
Um, I would love to see them battle it out next year and just have a true competition. I'm not. I know Cale Helms is great. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I do truthfully think that they should have a very competitive spring and late summer practice.
Yeah. And
Okay, well, we all will
let's pray
give our
for
best
no
wishes.
let's pray for zero non-contact injuries in the ball and in the summer camp, when they convene, because anytime you hear a non-contact injury, you just cringe, because that really is it's kind of like a euphemism for this guy's going to be out for a long time. And something similar happened to Briggs Bartosh this season. We still don't know the nature of the injury. When we were in San Antonio, I was talking directly to his mother and was asking her about it, and she was very good about the OPSEC and didn't let on. But what I did glean from the way she was answering was that Briggs was a lot more seriously injured than we knew, and that his return was unlikely. So these kind of things, a non-contact injury usually means something like you've torn an ACL, you've ruptured an Achilles tendon, or you've suffered a severe high ankle sprain or something like that that just does not heal overnight. It takes weeks, maybe months, even longer to fully recover from.
Okay, well, our best wishes to Ethan Washington, and well, we're all looking forward to it. I thought it was kind of interesting about the turf up in Boston, and I think it was pretty similar to Yankee Stadium, being a grass field and then frozen. It was really like old time football, and not what the players today in college football are used to. The pros to an extent, because the NFL season now regular season goes into January, and then playoff games in northern latitudes, um, and in some cases outdoor stadiums. And I thought it was just interesting. We were reminiscing about the famous Sneaker Bowl game in the 1930s at the Polo Grounds where Army used to play. Um, and the New York Giants were struggling in the first half with their footing, playing on a frozen field. So they went out to get sneakers and wore sneakers in the second half of the game, and scored a couple of touchdowns to win that game. But it was just sort of an unusual circumstance that college players don't face much anymore, about a grass field that's frozen. But Army handled it pretty well. A few slips along the way. I felt, for my just being down on the field before the game, it was frozen and very hard.
Yeah.
So when you landed, got tackled into the ground, it was a pretty solid surface they were landing into. And
Yeah.
not like the Ravens Stadium 2 weeks ago, which was grass field, but a soft NFL field.
Yeah, when you and I
So
were talking, when you and I were talking on the phone earlier today, and you brought this very topic up, I made mention of the fact that when my dad and I were watching, and very early in the game, I think maybe just Army's second series, they were doing close-ups of the team in the huddle, and you could see just about every single one of Army's players' elbows were, like Cale Helms and other players on the team, their elbows were bleeding. And I made the comment, I said, that field must be hard as concrete. And my dad, he can't see as well, so I have to kind of narrate things to him. And he asked me, why did I say it? And I said, because we're only in the second possession of the game, and Army's quarterback and some of the other players already have arms and elbows that have just been ripped to pieces. and it has to be from that field. So, to be able to play 4 quarters on a frozen solid field like that, and knowing how much it hurts to get tackled on it, not, and get all of these, these strawberries all over your arms and your elbows and your knees, it just is something that you feel it later, and it'll leave the scars.
It was rock solid. It
And
was
let's
rock
just
solid.
before we break, we could go over the college football playoff games that will be coming up on Thursday, on New Year's Day, and actually one will be tomorrow night,
Mhm.
and that is the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Number 10 Miami playing number 2 Ohio State. Ohio State is a 9.5 point favorite. Any thoughts on that game?
Yeah,
Ohio
I
State all the
honestly,
way.
I think, yeah, Ohio State's probably going to win, but I mean, I also have confidence in Miami with their quarterback. I read a stat saying that Carson Wentz, or I forgot how you pronounce Miami's quarterback's name, but he is against top 25 or top 15 teams. He is 14-2, mm, which is pretty remarkable. And that's throughout
Okay.
his career. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have the All-State Sugar Bowl, number 6 Ole Miss and number 3 Georgia. And Georgia is a 6.5 point favorite in that one to be played in New Orleans. Thoughts on that one?
Georgia.
Ole Miss all the way. I think Ole Miss is going to win this game with their
Yeah.
quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We got 2 more. We got the Capital One Orange Bowl, and that is maybe the closest matchup. Oregon number 5 and number 4 Texas Tech. Oregon is a 2.5 point favorite in that one to be played in Miami. Thoughts on that? Who do you
Texas,
like?
Oh, go ahead,
Texas
Sam.
Tech all the way. Texas Tech.
I want Texas Tech because the linebacker dates a West Point grad. I don't know if anyone saw that. The star linebacker from Texas Tech, he's dating or he's actually engaged to, or got married to a West Point grad. He graduated last year, so I'm rooting for Texas
Okay.
Tech, but I think it's going to be Oregon.
Okay. Okay. And then very interesting game. Alabama, number 9, won at Oklahoma. Will play Indiana, the number 1 seed. Indiana is a 7 point favorite in that. And that's one of those games where you kind of say, well, Alabama's just won its last game, a big road game. And does that give them momentum going into play Indiana, which has had a couple of weeks off since their last game? But Indiana is a 7 point favorite. Anybody going to take Alabama in that one?
Yeah,
No,
I'm so I'm in
I think Kurt.
Alabama.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in Alabama, and I know it's blasphemy for me to say this, but I'm going Indiana all the way on this. And part of me is because I'm rooting for Indiana to win outright because of the fact that they won the Big Ten and they upset Ohio State and they slayed the dragon when they did that. But I haven't forgotten the fact that last year Ohio State lost to Michigan in the Big Ten championship, but went on to win the national championship game. But this year, I've always believed that defense wins championships. And as far as the teams that are right now in the college football playoff, Indiana hands down has the most lights out defense of all. And I know that Alabama, I got to say Alabama handed it to me because I actually stated in our last huddle that I did not think that Alabama belonged in the college football playoff, and I was wrong there, but I was right about James Madison and Tulane. But I just do not think that Alabama has played consistently enough, and they do not have a running game. And people need to pay attention to this fact. Alabama does not have an effective running game. And Indiana can feast off of Alabama's quarterback when they establish that the line of scrimmage on defense and they stop Alabama's very weak running game. So I'm
I
going with
think
Indiana on this one.
I think
Okay.
Indiana by The coaches are just too good. Kurt Signetti, or however you pronounce his name, he's a football god. I think he's a genius, and he's an upcoming Hall of Famer. I think this guy is one of the best coaches that's going to be around for a long time.
I think Curtis is right.
Yes.
Okay.
Before I forget, the new Penn State head coach is Matt Campbell.
Yeah, Matt
Yep.
Campbell.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Chuck. Did anyone hear the comment of Nick Saban when he talked about what you just mentioned, Tulane and James Madison participating in the college football playoff, and critiqued them? And he said, it's like inviting AAA teams into the playoff. And I thought that was a rather stern comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That
don't
sort
agree
of
with that.
football is different than basketball, where having won the champion of every conference in Division One eligible for the tournament has produced some great Cinderella teams over the years, but it doesn't seem to work in football, and certainly doesn't work in the transfer portal NIL era, where the big schools can eliminate a deficiency at a position by simply finding a player at another school and hiring them using NIL. So there is a bigger gap between the group of four, the Power Four, and the
Group of
Group of
five.
Five schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone think there
Think-
should be a Group of Five championship?
So I think, honestly, I mean, if I'm
you go
breaking
ahead,
it,
Curtis.
go ahead, Sam. All right.
You,
Well,
you go ahead.
if
I've
I'm
been
breaking,
going. Yeah, I've been
yeah,
going first. You go first.
so if I'm breaking down the group of five, one, I think this year was an off year. Last year we had Boise State, which we were lucky for. I mean, when I say we, I'm talking about the group of five. We had Boise State, so I don't think a lot of people really complain. Like if this happened last year, people would be saying the same thing. I think what it really does come down to is NIL. Not so much the transfer portal. What I didn't realize is that the majority of starters at Power Four schools are making anywhere between $100,000 and $150,000 minimum through NIL. I'm talking about the starters. The backups at these Power Four schools are making around 50 to 30,000 minimum. Now you're looking at the group of five. Starters at the group of five schools are making around $30,000 to $40,000 in NIL. With that being said, that kind of hurts the group of five, but I do think that this was just a down year for the group of five as a whole. I don't think there were really any standouts that really pushed themselves beyond the bar. I mean, like, think about it. We almost beat Tulane. We should have beaten Tulane. And Tulane was in it, and they played Ole Miss. I don't have really a comparison to James Madison because we didn't play them. But if you really look at it, like all the teams in the American Conference, Army should have beaten North Texas, Tulane. I mean, really, it was
Except
just
for
an
East
off year.
Carolina.
East Carolina, yeah,
was the
except
only
for East
real
Carolina.
solid win by an opponent.
True, yeah, but that's all I had to say. Sam, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Curtis. As far as this year is concerned, just looking at the microcosm of this year, Tulane and James Madison, they both had good seasons. They both won their conferences. They just did not. They did not belong in the college football playoff period. And I've had some folks come back at me because when midway through the third quarter of the Oregon James Madison game, it was 48-13 with about 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. And it was only going from bad to worse. And I made a post on Facebook about it and, criticizing the college football playoff for the whole selection process and having James Madison in there in the first place because the game was so ugly. And then, of course, what happened was Oregon called the dogs off and they put in their third string, by the fourth quarter. They had backups in at every position. And James Madison scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. Made the score sound a lot more respectable than the game really was. It finished 51-34. James Madison, the bulk of the yards that they gained in the fourth quarter. The bulk of the points they scored was in the fourth quarter, and all of this was against the Oregon second and third string team. And so it did not really make suddenly a justification for James Madison to have been in a college football playoff. If Oregon had wanted to, put the accelerator down when it was 48-13. It could have very easily been a 70-13 game very quickly. And Oregon controlled every aspect of that game. They just backed off the accelerator. Tulane played a team that had blown them out earlier in the season, and I don't know why the College Football Playoff Committee thought that it was going to be different results this time around, but lo and behold, guess what? Tulane got blown out again by Ole Miss. So congratulations, College Football Playoff Committee. You got Tulane blown out twice by Ole Miss in the same season. All right, so great job.
Yeah. I guess one of the concerns that the athletic director, Tom Theorakis, and the Navy athletic director are looking at closely, as well as the conference commissioner, Tim Peretti, who we chatted with in Boston, is the proposed expansion of the college football playoff next year, something that will be decided upon in January. And I had kind of thought, well, the next logical thing to do would be to go from 12 teams to 16 teams and eliminate bye games. And then every school would have a home game, which is coveted. But there's talk of going beyond 16 and apparently having a play-in round with perhaps another 8 teams involved. And that, if they went to that, they'd be pushing into the week that Army Navy is been set aside for the last 20 years. And obviously, this year's Army Navy game was one of the top rated, most watched games of the year on CBS. And it's respectful to not only the cadets and the midshipmen, but all the veterans who watched that game, the graduates of the 2 academies. It seems like it's been a win-win for everybody. Anyone have a thought or any insight on what they think the college football playoff is going to look like next year?
So my only insight, so as it relates to Army Navy, I know that wasn't your direct question, but my only insights, and I don't look, I'm not our AD, or I'm also not Navy's AD either. But I would hope that they're able to either keep the same date that they have, December 13th or December 12th or December 14th. It's always on those dates, depending on the year, or whatever the Saturday falls on that year, or move it up 1 week. Only because if they're expanding the playoffs, they're going to have another week usage of potentially, as Ken mentioned, the rounds, where they have 8 teams potentially, or another round if they expand it even just to 16, they're going to have another round. With that said,
Well,
they'd have to
16, not
probably push.
necessarily. Curtis, they do
Oh, go ahead.
16. They could have all of the first round games. There'd be no buys, and it would be the same week that they did the play-in games this year.
Oh, that'd be great.
The concern is if they go beyond 16. Sam, what do you think? What are you hearing?
And I'm not really hearing much more than what you're talking about. But we have had the conversation about with regards to the expansion of the college football playoff and the chatter that has been flooding social media at times about moving the Army Navy game to be the first game of the season, the opening game of college football every season and stuff like that. And I really believe that is something that is a non-starter. It shouldn't happen, and it's disrespectful to Army Navy. Because what it means is that college football, which we know FBS college football is driven by money. I get it. But let's look at the writing on the wall. And writing on the wall is that the Army Navy game is consistently one of the highest rated television games of the season. And some people will say, well, yeah, but that's because it's the only FBS game on that particular Saturday. Yeah, well, here's the deal. There are more people watching the Army Navy game than a lot of other even Power 4 games, rivalry games that happen during the season. And, as Ken mentioned, the Army Navy game this year was the #1 viewed CBS college football game of the entire season. And on top of that, the game is a sellout at every venue that it's played at. And many times it sets attendance records at the venue. I think it was 2021. It set the all-time attendance record at MetLife Stadium. I think it set the attendance rate record at Gillette Stadium when it was played there. If you were at Baltimore this year, good luck finding an empty seat if you just happen to be dropped in by parachute and you were looking for somewhere to sit down, because there were no seats. It was sold out. It was standing room only. That's the way the Army-Navy game is, and it should be like that. It's a sacred game that needs to be left alone in a standalone position of honor where it is, and it needs to remain that way. And believe me, it is not a matter of whether or not people are going to watch it. They're going to watch it, and people are going to respect the fact that it is in its place of honor. And the college football playoff, if they're going to continue to expand the college football playoff in the manner that you're talking about, to where they need to back the games up into the same weekend of Army-Navy, my recommendation is this: play on Thursday night, Friday night, or Saturday night with a kickoff after the conclusion of the Army-Navy game, and leave the Army-Navy game alone, and have no competition or other games that are that it is in competition with while it's being broadcast.
Okay, that's not a bad idea, Sam. Play the first round if they're playing games, and if they expanded to 24, that they would have the first 4 playing games on Thursday, Friday, and then before and after the Army-Navy game. So we'll see.
Ken?
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if to not like interfere with the Army Navy game, why not just have the games on why not just have the games on Thursday and Friday, and then the Army Navy game is just left alone as like it is.
But
Well, it could be.
that's kind of what I just said, Richard.
Oh,
Yeah. One of the challenge with this is the weather. Some of the stadiums, the outdoor stadiums in the Northeast, especially the upper Midwest, have to be prepared for winter.
Yeah.
And not all of them have are prepared for the plumbing and everything else that has to work in the wintertime.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of factors. Also, if you bring in a football game and 60 or 70,000 people to campus on a Thursday night, it's hard to have classes going on. But okay, well, anything else we want to talk about before we break? It's been amazing that the season for Army is did conclude on a very high note. Any final thoughts?
Go
I
Army.
did just want to mention, I had this conversation with somebody just yesterday, and someone who's a Cincinnati fan, and the question that was pressed to me was, do my Bearcats have a chance against Navy on Friday? And here's exactly what I said, and this may shock some of you. I said, no, your Bearcats are going to get run off the field by Navy, and here's why. Because Navy's going to bring the exact team that they went 10 wins with this season, and none of their players are going to be in the portal. None of their players are going to sit out the game, and they're going to be ready to go. Cincinnati's going to show up, and I haven't even looked, but I can guarantee you Cincinnati's going to show up with a bunch of players in the transfer portal and looking like a shell of the team that they were this season. And so, I'm pretty sure that much like last season when Oklahoma, based on name brand, showed up at the Armed Forces Bowl thinking they were going to win the game against Navy, and found out that if you show up and you're playing your second and third stringers the whole game against Navy, and a freshman quarterback who's never taken any snaps, and Navy's playing the team that had won 10 games, you're going to lose. So that's just the nature of college football bowl games this year. And that is, it's hit or miss on what team is going to actually show up to play and bring their best players, and what team that had a great season brings a shell of its former self to the bowl game and limps into the bowl game with their second and third string taking the snaps. So
It looks, Sam, it looks like Cincinnati's quarterback Brendan Sorsby entered the transfer portal with a 2.4 million NIL valuation.
there you go.
There we go.
There you go. There's your
Stephanie, do you
answer.
know what year in school he is?
Let's see.
Well, the reason I ask is one of the things that came up this week was contracts for the players and formalizing that process. Because there's intangibles with NILs as far as what their earnings opportunity is, what the numbers are, and then could they be multi-year? One school, and I can't recall who it was, is trying to take back money they paid to a player because the player
Georgia.
left.
So
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
was
that's right. It was at Georgia.
It's
he was a
he's a
three-star
junior.
recruit who signed with Indiana first in 2022. He started in 2023 before transferring to Cincinnati in 2024.
He's a redshirt junior, but but to Ken's point,
Okay.
the whole thing about Georgia is huge. I mean, this is actually going to be a game changer for NIL because that kid transferred to Missouri, and now they're suing that player, asking him to pay back his NIL money. But the guy is actually suing the University of Georgia in return because they actually evaluated him. They told other schools that don't take him because he's actually evaluated as his NIL being 3 million when his NIL was actually 300,000. So they were over evaluating him to make sure that the players of Georgia weren't being taken or poached by other schools. So now he's suing them back, and that's a game changer for NIL.
Yeah.
Well, the whole concept of evaluating what a player's financial worth is very subjective and subject to all
Yeah.
sorts of problems. And I think what you're going to start to see are schools offering players contracts.
Yeah.
I mean, in addition, they've always had a contract, but it was always cancelable by the school at the end of each year.
Yeah.
The contracts that players had to receive, room, board, and tuition, could be canceled by the school at the end of each year, which most people don't
Yeah.
realize.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a need for adults in the room to figure out, how to make it a equitable system for players and schools, to keep schools playing as the cost of football goes up as you're paying players, and the impact that has on other teams who will have less funding available. So anyway,
Yeah.
I guess we can call it a season. It's been enjoyable,
right.
and a lot of fun to work with everybody here. And
Agreed.
so just want to say thank you to Richard Miller in Florida.
You're welcome, Ken. Always a pleasure.
Okay, and Chuck Donegan out in Long Island, who covered the Pinstripe Bowl for us. I was very proud of him doing that. Thank you, Chuck.
My pleasure. All the best in 2026.
Okay, thank you. And Curtis Harris, thank you from New York City, and look forward to seeing you again next year.
Of course. Go Army, beat everybody, especially Navy.
Yeah.
Okay. And Col Sam Houston, good friend and veteran. We appreciate your insight and your passion for college football and for West Point. And always good to hear your point of view.
Yeah, it's been a great season. We end on a high note and with lots of optimism for 2026. And with that, I wish everyone a very safe and happy Beat Navy 2026.
Okay.
Beat Navy.
Well put. And Stephanie, we appreciate all your good work getting us on the air, and wish you the best. And we'll see you again next year.
Yes, we will definitely see you again next year. And I definitely have loved this whole experience. And I'm looking forward to, doing some more new things that never has happened on the huddle before, like we did this year.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you all for watching. And we especially extend our appreciation to members of the military, veterans who may have the chance to watch us. Very important, and we'll be looking forward to seeing the seniors from this year's class march into Mikey Stadium in May, Memorial Day weekend, and graduate, receive their diplomas, raise their right hands to take oaths as officers in the U.S. Army, and then later that day don their new officer uniforms to commission as officers in the U.S. Army. We're very proud that we cover West Point from classes from the day they enter as freshmen on our day to the day they graduate. So thank you for watching. Thank you for our team. And again, it's Ken Kraetzer for CamVetsMedia. We cover cadets, midship, and the military and veterans proudly since 2008. Happy New Year, and thanks again for watching.
Go Army.
Go Army.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.